Hi everyone, good evening. This is Banu Prakash, and today we are going to discuss about how we can implement DevOps lifecycle in Jenkins pipeline. So, pipeline might be a new word for you, but since the previous sessions, what we discussed, we have implemented DevOps lifecycle using Jenkins freestyle job, Jenkins Marvin type of job, and there is a scope of doing the pipeline way. What is pipeline? I will tell now. So we know this slide, we are seeing this slide from the previous sessions. The basic thing is code, build, deploy. In the freestyle and in the Maven, we have related source code as source code management, build as build, deploy as post build actions, and we configured in the similar way. So what we have done, we have created jobs, we went to different options, we configured multiple options, and then only we were able to implement the DevOps lifecycle using freestyle and Maven type of jobs. So the requirement of pipeline is developers or DevOps engineer doesn't want to modify the options every time. They wanted to make it as a code format so that if you modify something as a programmatical way, the Jenkins build, deploy, all the activities should run. So that is the purpose of going to pipeline as code. Even when we configure the things in freestyle or Maven, the same thing can be called as pipeline because it is a flow in the sense from planning, code, build, test, release, deploy, operate. The entire cycle I can call it as a pipeline. Whether we can configure it in the freestyle or whether we configure it in the Maven type or wherever we configure, it is a pipeline only. But we are configuring using a different kind of options. So as a first point, we did manually in the previous sessions, like a Maven build, Maven test, Maven deploy, and uploading to the Nexus and deploying to the Tomcat. Everything we did in a manual way. And then we moved to Jenkins and asked Jenkins to perform all our manual activities through automation. So in the automation, we created two jobs, Freestyle and Maven. So now to, one more advanced step to that is creating the same options, same pipeline. Instead of freestyle and instead of Maven, we are going to a different concept called pipeline as code. That means we don't need to every time modify the things. We simply have to code, and the code can read by Jenkins. And based on that code, Jenkins perform different activities. Either it is build, either it test, or any kind of other application testing, or any kind of deployment, or any kind of monitoring also. Anything can be programmed, and we can ask Jenkins to read that program and performs accordingly. We don't need to click on the drop downs. We don't need to click on the options here and there. We can simply code it and ask our Jenkins to run it. So that is the main concept of pipeline as code. So on the screen you can see there is a very basic pipeline, and when we start freestyle or Maven job, the first day we ran echo space hello world is the command. In the same way, this is the pipeline as code where it can print hello world in the console output. If you as it is run this pipeline, it will display, it will display echo space hello world as the output. We will see this practically once our discussion is over about the different types of pipelines. And what is the main motive is doing pipeline as code so that our effort in configuration of different options using drop down or checkboxes whatever can reduce a bit, and we can we can be more productive while doing the code so that Jenkins read the data and performs the actions accordingly. And in the pipeline as code, there are three types of options available. One is declarative pipeline, another one is scripted pipeline, and another one is shared libraries. So this is very minor difference between each pipeline. But if you directly go through the code, it is a bit little tricky to understand. In the declarative pipeline, so in the pipeline itself, each pipeline always has different kind of stages. But whichever pipeline which use more of tools wise, either Git tool or SH or BAT or Maven, as a tool wise, if it is using, then that means we can call it as declarative. And scripted means, you know what kind of scripting language we have. Shell script is the very basic thing. So if you use any kind of if conditions or any kind of conditions which are based on Groovy, so or anything scripting can be used to do. So if the scripting is involved in that pipeline, then it is called as scripted pipeline. And shared libraries is like, in our 10 years back or something, when we join for Java programming language, they first teach you about Java basics, they call it a Java core, and then they will go for the advanced oops concept. In the same way, scripted deals with basic concepts, and in the shared libraries it deals with the oops concept. Whoever is very good at oops concepts and in the developing of oops concept, either Java or Groovy, they can easily start writing the code for shared libraries. So all the pipeline as code is based on the Groovy. So but no need to worry even if you don't know Groovy. This is simple syntax based thing, so that we can quickly learn and apply our skills here. So basically the pipeline as code can be performed in three different ways. So whichever is comfortable for you, you can utilize that option, either declarative or scripted or shared libraries. We will see some of the examples of how this declarative, scripted, and shared libraries code is looked. If you see in the screen, I can these are lines are very small, but to fit the entire code in one single slide, I put it like this. But this is declarative pipeline. So you don't need to read the entire code, but I will point where what are the main options you need to put your focus. If you see, this is the one of the tool, Maven. It is picking this tool from the Jenkins. And at the same time, Git also another tool. It is also getting picked from Jenkins. And BAT is a command line. This is also coming from Jenkins. So these are the main points. By seeing these three things, we can identify this code as declarative pipeline. Don't need to worry about this thing. Once you practice, you will easily understand. Or I will make you understand very easily once you practice. And this is scripted one. Scripted means, as I told you, it will involve scripting. That means some kind of programming. If you see here, if condition is placed, you know if condition syntax. If will be there and else also will be there. If it is involving if condition and else condition, so that means it is scripted pipeline. You can easily say if these things are there. And also another definition is, if definition some variable is named, means they are defining some of the variable. So in that way also you can specify this as a scripted pipeline. And if we come to shared libraries, it involves shared library concept means shared. That means one type of code the DevOps engineers or someone develops and keeps in one particular repository. And all the remaining repositories will use this common repository to do their builds, to do their test, to do other kind of functionalities and do the deployments. So whatever the DevOps life cycle they wanted to implement, they use a repository one. That means this shared library code. That's why I mentioned shared. Shared means it's common. They use this shared library common code, and then they will implement their DevOps life cycle. That is the purpose of this shared library pipeline. If you see in the shared library, if you get a chance to open any shared library repository, in the first look itself, you can see SRC folder will be there, VARS folder will be there, and resource folder will be there. Sometimes resource folder might not be there or might be there, but SRC and VARS folder are the two things must be available in any shared library DevOps code. This is the common code and can be used across multiple source code repositories. What I mean means, for example, if you have Java, Python, PHP, Node.js, NPM, Conan, .NET, if you have different technologies, but we wanted to have some common pipeline. That is why developers are someone or DevOps engineers who can code in the Groovy. They develop a common repository code that is called shared library code, and these all type of source code repositories will use this common code. That is why we call it a shared library pipeline. But no need to worry as of now. Once we practice, we'll come to know about this thing very easily. Now we will see practically in Jenkins how we can run the basic pipeline from scratch. We will see from since yesterday what we have seen freestyle and Maven job. Let's create new job called pipeline. Click on the new item, select the pipeline, and type your pipeline name as pipeline. I select pipeline so that it can be easily recognized. I have created a pipeline. I will simply click on save. So when we create a job called any job, it doesn't have any configuration. So now I wanted to configure it. I will open the pipeline and go to configure. You see, it doesn't have source code, it doesn't have build, it doesn't have any post build actions. What does that mean? We don't have any options to configure. We only have some space where we can write our sample code. That is why I use in the drop down. They are providing default some scripts. I use the existing one called hello world. You can also use the same thing. So this is the hello world basic pipeline. I will reuse from the drop down and click on save and click on the build now. Now once you click on the build, it will run this pipeline and will show you output here. See, the stage name is called hello and it took 333 milliseconds. And in the same way, we can see the log also. See, hello world is printed here. Since it is pipeline, it is showing as pipeline. This is a very basic and first pipeline which we have run. So this is the first one we understood, right? Now I will make it. I will remove this thing. Now I wanted to implement DevOps lifecycle in this pipeline. So for that, I will go to the code which I have shown to you here. Let me show you again. This is the declarative pipeline code. So you don't need to worry. I have this code. I have placed this code in the GitHub repository. You can pick it from there. I will copy the entire code and I will place it here and save it. But before running, I wanted to show you what it has. Since it is a pipeline, then a pipeline name starts with pipeline. Agent any means any node it can pick, either it master or node. It doesn't matter. And tool it is taking Maven-3. If you recall for Maven, we mentioned Maven-3 in the Jenkins configuration. So from that location, it will take Maven-3. If you give a different name in the Jenkins configuration, you need to provide the proper name here. So I want to implement the first section called code and second section called build, third section called deploy. These are the three stages I want to implement. So in the freestyle and Maven, what we had in, we went to the freestyle or Maven and configure different options. But since we want to do in a code format, we don't need to go to the different options. We can simply write the code here. So this is the basic syntax and you can add any number of stages. There is no limit to this thing. If you add another stage, it will show as a different stage. So from the start, like as a basic start, we use the code, build, deploy. After that, you can use different options. As we have seen yesterday, either if you wanted to go to Nexus, if you wanted to do a test, if you wanted to do integration test, if you wanted to do performance test, if you wanted to do functional test, whichever stage you want to tell, you can simply copy one of the stage like this and paste it here. It will become new stage. So, and you modify that code. So I provided Git and I provide the Git URL. We know this Maven-var URL. It will get the code from this location. And second step is it will do Maven package. I wanted to ignore the test so that I put it here. If you don't want to ignore the test, you can mention simply maven space package. And in the deploy, we are deploying the war file and developed a war file to the Tomcat. That is why I mentioned curl upload the file which is going to create to the Tomcat. This is the localhost 8082 is the server which I am running Tomcat. In that location, this is the path you have to deploy. That is what I have coded here. If you go through this code, you will easily understand. I will minimize this step and I will run the Jenkins job now. Now the Jenkins job is running. Let me follow the console output. See, the stage is started. In the first stage, it does not require any credentials because it is a GitHub repository and it is a free one. So it cloned one Git repository and it is going for the Maven building. So the Maven build is successful. So once the build is successful, what it will do? It will deploy. So this is the deploy stage is being called. And using the deploy stage, it is uploading the file and it uploaded to the Tomcat to this location. You see, Tomcat upload is completed. You can see deploy the application at context path ASN for example 100 snapshot and the build status is success. Let me go back and open the Tomcat and see if it is deployed properly. If you see here in the list of applications, we can see ASN for example 100 snapshot. Let me open in the new tab so that we can see it. We can see this is being deployed and it is working here. Yeah, this is how we can run our pipeline and we can deploy. Yeah, see here if you see here, there are 4 blocks you can see. First block is declarative tool installation and second one is code and build and deploy. Since this is a declarative pipeline, it is directly picking the declarative tools and then it is coding and then building and then deploying. What is each stage does is, we can pick it from the code which we have done here. Yeah. So this is how we ran today declarative pipeline using Jenkins. Let me click on configure and show you the code. I'll click on pipeline. If you see, this is the pipeline we have done today. Yeah, now what I will show you, the same pipeline code can be pulled from the GitHub repository. So I will take this code, entire code, and go to GitHub. Since I already created a repository called pipeline, I will place that code into a file called Jenkins file. So I will open the Jenkins file and put the same code. This is the same code I have been used. So you also can create a new repository called pipeline or something, whatever the name, but the pipeline repository should contain a file called Jenkins file. Then only the Jenkins can recognize it. So open the Jenkins file and in that you paste your whatever the either declarative or scripted code, you can paste it here. Now I wanted to use this code and run the same pipeline. I'll go to Jenkins and click on the pipeline. I'll go to configure section and go to the pipeline. And here I don't want to display the code like this, so that I will remove everything. And then the drop down I will select pipeline script from SCM. That means we can use the Git and we can specify the URL, and from the URL itself it will read the URL and it will read the content of the URL and it will take the Jenkins file from that, and whatever the code which is there in the Jenkins file, it will execute that code. So let me save it and run it for you. Now I will click on build now. So this is the another way of putting our code into GitHub, and the same code can be run by Jenkins. See, the same kind of blocks are being added. One is checkout SEM, and then it is going to declare to install, code, build, deploy. These things are happening. So this is another way of doing the pipeline. Yeah, let me scroll down and show. See, no one will be able to read the code from this section. That is why this is also another way of securing your code, so that you can put your code in any of your version control tools, either GitHub or Bitbucket or somewhere else, and then you can pull this code using Jenkins and you can run your build. So that's it for today. Tomorrow we will see how we can implement scripted pipeline and if possible share libraries in the next sessions.